Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Cheers.
Right.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Cheers. I'm still working on getting the link and adding it to the event.
I don't know if everybody's West Coast, but Shadi and I are drinking early.
Yes. I usually don't start till after 5:30.
Yeah, East Coast
5 o'clock here. So we're good.
Yep, it's 7 o'clock where I am. Where is everybody? Maybe we shout out our cities. I'm a little north of Atlanta.
I'm in Clearwater, Florida.
Shadi, what about you? Where'd you say?
San Mateo, California, which is like suburb of San Francisco, 20 minutes south of San Francisco.
That's cool. I grew up in the Bay Area. I grew up in San Francisco.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I'm in Boise now.
Oh, nice.
Very different from San Francisco.
A little bit different. She's always posting these beautiful pictures of her, like every morning taking a walk by the stream. I'm like, girl, it is 7,000 degrees outside still, so
It's only it was like 41 this morning, Christine.
Do you guys all do like morning walks, or do you have any like routines just for yourself to start out the morning?
My morning walk. That's like, if I don't do it, like yesterday I didn't do it, and we just got a treadmill, so I was on the treadmill, and I was like having this moment of like being really grateful that I have a treadmill, and then being really pissed that I wasn't on my walk. So it was like this internal battle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're having some technical difficulty getting Michelle and Nikki on. Oh, there's Michelle. Let me add her.
There she is.
Hey.
Hey.
We're waiting on you ladies.
Fantastic.
Michelle, are you drinking? What are we drinking?
I wasn't going to, but I didn't want to be a party pooper because I'm like perimenopausal, and I could tell. And I'm gonna kill somebody, but I don't want to get arrested because I need my job right now. So yeah, I poured something.
All right, Michelle's here.
Michelle's here.
I don't mince words.
I don't see Nikki, but we'll have to carry on. So amazing! Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you everyone who's joining us live on LinkedIn. That's amazing. So happy to have you. And you know what I notice with a lot of the mom groups out there, or just late women's groups, is that there's not a lot of conversations about moms. And I thought this was a great opportunity to really have everyone come aboard and tell us like how you make it work, you know, because some days I feel like I have it all figured out, and some days I just do not. So thank you so much for joining me. We'll start. Oh, there's Nikki.
Yay. There she is.
You found us.
Hey, ladies.
So we had barely just started. In case there's people watching in our networks that don't know all of you, I just figured we would go around and just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're drinking for happy hour. And we'll just go ahead and start with Tara. So.
Hey guys, so I'm Tara Horstmeyer, and I am drinking. I'm being super lame, guys, because it's just one of those days. But I'm a beer girl, so I like pretty much everything. But I really am like, I'm an SEC Florida Gator, and I'm still drinking a beer. But I'm drinking it in my special Thursday night sales. I only drink this on Thursdays, but I'm bringing it out for Wednesday for tonight. So. And so I'm a little bit north of Atlanta, Georgia, and married to my husband Neil. It'll be 15 years in January. We started dating 20 years ago in December, and we have 3 sons, Pace, Asher, and Cannon. And basically, I've got puberty to potty training. So we've got 12, 9, and 2. So my life is a little bit crazy, but I work for Gravy and have had several roles there. Most recently, the director of Partner of Success.
Nice.
Awesome. Shadi, you're next. You're up next.
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Shadi Buckland. I live in San Mateo, California, which is suburbs of San Francisco. I have two daughters, 10 and 4, so different stages. One's very independent, one requires a lot. And so I've been in sales and sales enablement for over 10 years, but about 5 months ago, I actually started my own executive coaching business. And I do a lot of training for sales leaders that I work with in the past. So I have clients that kind of contact me all the time with their challenges, and I work with them on different strategies. And so, so it's been interesting trying to juggle the whole like mom thing, kids being home, and running a business, like being available to these people, like being new and kind of transitioning from corporate tech to like starting my own company. So it's a lot of work, and I'm loving my wine, which always keeps me company in the evening. So tonight I'm having my favorite, again, I'm in Bay Area, so Napa is close by, and Rombauer is one of my favorite wineries. So I'm having a Rombauer Zinfandel glass tonight. So
Awesome. Thank you so much. Nikki, you're up next.
Hi.
We're so happy to have you.
It was really special to me to do this and do it during Women in Sales Month. As many of you may or may not know, I am a former teen mom. And so this motherhood end has been my life since I became an adult and a little bit beforehand. So that's why I'm here and why it's special to me and why I'm so glad to be commiserating with you ladies. What I do, I'm a sales developer, right? Like it's in my DNA. I enjoy exploring the unit economics of, how SDRs become successful. And that's kind of how my career started, is paying attention to that. And what it turned into was like, what else other parts of a business could we impact from this role of SDRs, right? How can we impact marketing? How can we impact sales? And most of all, how could we impact this pipeline of leadership that sees a lot of folks, namely women, mothers, and people of color and people of different sexual orientations who aren't often included. So I look at that role as a way to democratize access to all of those leadership roles, where the pipeline tends to get a little bit leaky for folks like us. And I'm doing that now at M-Train as a sales developer, and through SDR Defenders, a company I co-founded with some really fun peeps whose names y'all might know: Kyle Coleman, Josh Roth, and Tom Bocard, and Nisha, our marketer, Nisha Parikh. So that's what I'm up to.
That's what she's up to.
Jen, it looks like you were talking, but are you muted?
I am.
Who's muted?
I was muted, and I muted a bunch of other people too, because I was trying to figure out where the background noise was.
Oh, I forgot what we're drinking. So it's a big gulp. Because my husband and I, like, that's part of our love languages, right? Like if we're having a rough day and kind of like either not seeing each other enough, because that's what it is when you're like working parents, or I'm annoyed with him and we're not speaking to each other, he will just bring me a big gulp and we make eye contact and everything's all right.
Oh,
That's sweet. That works. I feel like I've been trying to meet you forever, and I got you to come on, and I'm like, yay, Nikki's here, and it's live.
I'm excited to be here. I was excited to get the invite. Like I said, man, I love this type of stuff. Community is what fuels my fire. And you ladies in particular, I'm inspired by a lot of you who I haven't actually gotten to have a conversation with. So this is good.
It's amazing. Thank you so much for being here. So, and now Christine Rogers, you're like everywhere. So like everybody knows you by now. I don't know. No,
I'm not, but I love you all. This is so much fun. Christine Rogers, I'm a COO and president of Aspireship. So we're excited to help people that are getting into sales, and making great introductions to awesome companies. So this is, being with you amazing saleswomen is so awesome. And then double down on we're all moms, and this is some hard shit doing all of this, isn't it? Like with all of this, I'm grateful to be learning from all of you and also sharing so that maybe we don't feel as crazy. I'm sorry, I swore, Jen. I didn't know if that was a rule or not. So.
I don't know. What are they going to do? Take my LinkedIn Live away?
I don't know, maybe.
I'll sign off now. What happened?
I'm drinking champagne, and I have 2 boys, 13 and 15. So happy to be with you guys today.
Thank you for joining us. So, Rachel, everybody wants to know how you are. We've got so many comments here about you.
I'm not okay.
You're not okay.
I'm not okay. Like everyone's, and Nikki knows she did it. Like every once in a while, it just like the hot sauce just shows up, like back into your throat out of nowhere, and like you just, I'm really hot, y'all. I'm really hot and flashing, and I don't think it's the menopause yet. I think it's the bomb. It's
I'm
definitely
surprised
the bomb.
nobody's drinking milk after all that hot sauce. And then
Oh
we've
my
got
God. No,
Mark
I drank like
says-
two milkshakes.
2 milk. Mark
That's a
says,
good idea. I didn't think
bad
about
for the
that.
timing of that.
Yeah, it did not end up good. Mark actually changed the date. He changed the day. That's how they ended up at the same time. And I'm like, now I'm drinking wine, and I'm definitely, it's not gonna go well. But whatever. I'm here with you all, and that's so fun. And I'm so excited to play with you guys. I, like Nikki, was on the early mom train, and so I got my mom card, before I was able to vote, if you will. And someone entrusted me with a life when I couldn't find my own socks. So I've been a mom with a career as long as I've been an adult, and luckily for me now, I can't imagine how you guys are all doing this whole pandemic at home thing with these little humans, because I can barely keep the big humans alive. So I actually have a 21-year-old and an 18-year-old and a 12-year-old, Hunter, Mason, and Kyler, and they're all boys. So my house just smells like feet most of the time. And one of them just barfed in the bathroom.
That's not good.
So that's
hot sauce.
hashtag mom life.
Hashtag mom life. Alexis.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Alexis Scott. I am on Christine's team at Aspireship, managing employer partnerships. My Alexa in my bathroom thinks I'm talking to it because every time I say my name, it dings at me. Anyhow, I am in Boise, Idaho. I have 2 kids. My daughter, Aiden, is 12, almost 15, and my son, Benji, is just turned 11 in July. All about the smelly. Like, we just got to the smelly portion of things. I'm not digging that. So I'm there. I am as basic as can be right now. On my life. Yeah, girl.
You
Girl,
are.
whatever works.
Yep.
All right. And Michelle, the rebellion. We've got Michelle.
Yes, ma'am. Hi, everyone. Michelle Hecht with the Sales Rebellion. I'm married with 2 sons. Also, there's a lot of boy moms here. All right. So much to talk about. But I have 2 sons, Jordan and Garrett. They are 9 and 14. They're going to be 10 and 15 next month, 3 days apart. So the joke is, around Valentine's Day, I get very amorous. So if you do the math. Yeah. But my whole background was, and I say was, corporate sales in the pharmaceutical industry. And I just recently made the big leap into what I've always wanted to do, which is sales training and sales coaching with the Sales Rebellion. So I came on board 6 months ago, and I've just taken everything that I've learned and picked apart what I think works and what doesn't, and what's human and what's not, and what's just robotic and vanilla and stale. And I dismissed it and threw it in the trash and kind of incorporated my own thing. And the longer I stay on LinkedIn, and it's only been about a year and change, the longer I stay on and I meet more people, the more I realize I really don't know much. I've learned so much, and I'm just really grateful to be here with all of you and see faces finally. A few I know, but it's amazing how you go back and forth and talk to people and banter and whatnot. But then when you see them and hear their voice and connect with them on a different level, a more human level, it's pretty awesome. So I'm happy to be here.
Well, and we're happy to have you. So the idea is we're going to share some stories, right? And some tips on lessons we learned and how to balance it all. And, just useful thoughts and ideas for all the other moms out there, because, they're not alone, right? There's so many women in sales and they're moms. And that's, you have to figure out a way to manage it all and a quota and get things done. So, Tara, why don't you share first?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to. So my journey into sales has been, and I know I've posted about this, but not your typical linear, like, hey, how many of us knew what we wanted to do at 18 or 22 or anything? Not me. So I went the journalism, content creation, publishing route. But the crazy thing is that I tell everybody is I've always been in sales. I've always been in marketing. I've always been selling. And it never became more apparent than when I had kids. And I know it's kind of a cliche of like, you literally have to sell your kids every day. But my oldest, who is now 12, literally is my home sales trainer, because every single day of my life with that kid literally is a bargain. And it's interesting when I compare all three of them, that he's the one that actually is the most fiery, but he's the one I really negotiate with the most. So whether that is Pace, do your homework, Pace, put away your clothes, Pace, spray your deodorant, Pace, do something like that. It is constantly a sales conversation where I am trying to connect, like Michelle said, as a human to him. Because I think what I learned early on as a mom is that people don't like necessarily being told what to do or what you think they should do, but rather they really enjoy conversations to get them to buy in to what you want them to do. So that's when I came into sales later in life, realized, you know what, as a mom, I'm actually very naturally wired to do this already. So as I'm raising a 2-year-old alongside a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old, getting the 2-year-old to potty to just listen to me sometimes is the one that I have to remember all the sales tactics that I still use with the 12-year-old. And now I see him using with the 2-year-old. So it's hysterical that I'm like literally every second of every day with my life with my kids is just a big like sales training constantly, and one that I don't do. And then the other fun thing is the constant negotiating with my better half to make it happen, to make life happen. I know in the pandemic, we were all, especially when we were on lockdown, all of us at home, my gosh, under one roof. It was very much a, hey, who's my job and your job are both equally important, but we have 3 people here outside of us. And what does that look like? So a lot of negotiating, a lot of talking back and forth of what time's your meeting, what time's mine, and making sure that the kids, did their work and had their life, but it's still going on. So tonight, for example, we have my oldest 2 in football 3 nights a week, as well as a toddler who needs to go to bed. So it was, I think I was joking with y'all earlier, it was very much a negotiation of, okay, it takes a village. Like, you have to take them, drop them off. I'll get the little one ready for bed and him fed. Then you come back, put him to bed, and then pass along the monitor, and then we'll run, and you run back and go get the big kids. And that literally is like maybe an hour that I feel like is a microcosm of my life. Is just not only am I selling constantly, but I'm also a project manager. And that is literally the only way I squeeze everything that I need to do very imperfectly into life. But sometimes I just kind of have to get into project manage mode for my own sanity. Like, it's literally just communicating well and setting expectations, and then also knowing it is going to be a freaking mess a lot of times. And there are going to be tears. There's going to be screaming and yelling, sometimes by the kids, most of the time probably not. There's going to be emotions, and it's just going to get messy. But knowing my why and why I'm really doing this is what grounds me. And it's what makes the ever loving mess of like, literally where is happy hour worth it in my day, is looking at them and knowing like, guys, I would rake myself over coals for you. And some days it feels like that. And I keep doing it because I want to set an example for them that your mom is strong and that your mom can do it and is going to be a hot mess doing it imperfectly, but is going to do it for them and wants to set the stage that is the kind of woman that hopefully they will honor and they will cherish and they will look for as they grow up, is someone who is also displaying her own strength, whatever that looks like.
That's amazing. It sounds like you're an amazing role model.
Applause. That was so amazing. Like,
yeah, such a just wonderful. I love in particular the part about being imperfect, right? Mm-hmm. So like that's when you strive for perfection, you end up just sort of being down on yourself, but like just embracing imperfection and that things are going to be the way they are. I think it's pretty amazing. So let me see if we have any comments here. Nothing updated. Everybody's very concerned about everyone who was in the fire talk earlier. So Erin Bell is not doing great, but no additional comments. But I think that was really useful. I know for me with my kids, I do a lot of negotiation as well. I do a lot of mirroring. After I read that Chris Voss book, right? Mm-hmm. I practice the mirroring pretty regularly on my children. And so what happened after a while is they started mirroring back, right? So eventually if I ask them a question, they'll repeat the last 3 words and ask it back. And, now we're in an endless loop. Okay, so Shadi, you're next for sharing a story.
Yeah. So I'll share a story from just this pandemic time earlier, like in June, July, when I first started launching my own business. And this was a time when actually my younger daughter, who's 4, needed to have a tonsillectomy. So she was actually originally scheduled for her surgery in March, but due to shelter in place, everything got canceled. And so we had to schedule this tonsillectomy. It requires COVID tests, all this pre-op work. It's a whole different new schedule. And here I am, like kind of having some success early on, signing up some clients, and like really trying to do it all, be there for her, be there for my older kids, like transitioning to like homeschooling and summer camp at home and all of that. And I just remember this call that I had with an executive that I was like, he had just prepaid for 10 sessions of coaching. And, I calendared all these meetings and made myself available to him. He was coaching one of his leaders on how to do better forecasting and just needed to kind of like have this difficult conversation with his direct report. And before he went on in this meeting, he wanted to like engage me and like run everything by me. And here I am, like I'm trying to schedule my daughter's COVID test and like I'm getting like another kid yelling at me and he's calling and I have to answer this call too. And it's like trying to stay calm in the moment. I think it's just like a skill that I've learned, like because when like everything just kind of gets thrown at you, like how do you manage it all and how do you like keep your professionalism and then still manage the kids at home and everything else that's going on. And just, I just remember that was kind of a difficult moment. I managed a conversation with him well and kind of gave him, like, you're doing a good job. This is exactly the conversation we talked about that you should have. Talked to him about this and this. And then, then I had to pop on the call again with the hospital and like I had like put the wrong date in and time in. And so I had to like fix that. And then my daughter was like screaming at me and I just like had a meltdown that day. And I just realized like I just have to cut myself a break and I'm not going to be at my best all the time and I'm not going to be perfect. And the people who love me and kind of, who are there for me will understand that. They're not going to judge me. And so I did have like this moment of meltdown where I just kind of like got off the phone. I was like, ah, and just like screamed. And so I think from that moment on, like I've just been I've been trying to stay organized. So I definitely like, I have the shared calendar with my husband about like the activities that need to happen based on our meetings. We try to kind of divvy things up. But I also know that like I'm not always going to have the best days, and some days are amazing and I'm going to feel great, and then there are other days that I'm just going to struggle a little bit, and that's okay. And it's okay for me to just know that that's the reality of it, and just have compassion for myself. I think that's something that I've learned, is just to have compassion for myself. And like we always try to have compassion for others, but it's super important to just say like, it's okay that I'm not feeling okay right now. And so that's my story. And then another thing, just yesterday, like I realized my kids have outgrown their shoes, and I forgotten to like order new shoes for them. So I had like all these shoes like sitting in the Zappos like cart, and like I just had forgotten to like submit this, because they told me they're like, our shoes are too small. So I like finally submitted that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like there's just so much to manage, and I think we just sort of have to cut ourselves some slack sometimes, and know that life isn't going to be perfect. So
yeah, no, I mean, and I relate to that story really well. I personally, actually, my daughter had her tonsils out too at about 4 years old, or maybe it was earlier. It was before my son was born, so maybe 3. And like her being like under anesthesia and going through all of that was just so. It was a lot. It was just a lot, and I can't imagine now during COVID. At the time, I was going through a role change at the organization I was working at. So it was like I was reporting to someone new, and I had all this going on. But during COVID, having to have the COVID test and all those additional requirements,
yeah,
that's a lot. And your daughter, it was your daughter, right? How old is she?
She's 4. So yeah, she had right at the time she turned 4. And then we had to switch hospitals last minute, because she had to do it at Stanford, because we are at the Mills Hospital in Burlingame. But so she couldn't even have her regular doctor do it, because of the nursing shortage, they couldn't have the nurses stay overnight for monitoring her. So we had to so it was just like a lot of mess last minute. They told us we had to switch hospital. So you can just imagine with like having work, having homeschooling, like having this whole like surgery to schedule, and then just kind of worrying about all those things. So it was kind of a crazy time, but I do feel like I just learned a lot and just realized to have compassion for myself, honestly. So
yeah, no, and I think that's really important.
On the note of compassion for yourself, I don't know when I read this, but I've never forgotten it. So I'm really hard on myself, like in life in general. And I read this thing that said, when you are thinking negative thoughts towards yourself, ask yourself if that's something that you would say to your best friend. Like when you're down and you're like really just ragging on yourself, is that a constructive comment? Is that something that you would say to someone else that you think would help them? And if the answer is no, the question is, why are you saying it to yourself?
Yeah, I love that. Because I think that's so true and so important, because we do have all that self-critical talk, I think, as mothers and just as professionals who want to do a great job. And I just think it's super important to be like, would I talk to somebody else like, another, sometimes I yell at my kids. I'll be honest, I'll admit that. And I need to kind of work on that. But it's like, we wouldn't do that to our friends, and we wouldn't think that's right. So it's like, why do that to ourselves,
Yeah. Well, and we could all work on not like yelling so much. I mean, I know I can. Like my kids will tell you, my mom needs to work on not yelling at me so much. We do have some comments here though. So Catherine said, let's see, it's okay not to be okay, and having an A++ day every day, self-compassion. That is true. And then we've got Joy over here, who's, speaking of mess, my potty trained kid pooped his pants while I was networking yesterday at the sales summit. That is unfortunate, but it's going to happen.
It happens.
It happens. I mean, my kids are 6 and 9, so I started later in life, and so like I had my first child at 35. So my experience is very different where, I was sort of a little like further in my career where I was traveling while my kids were really young. So I've got like stories of like, you know, pumping in the airport and then watching security guards just pour out my breast milk. Like just before, like it was okay to take breast milk on the plane. Like that moment of rage of, what I had to do to get here? So my stories are like from like being a salesperson, like flying somewhere, leaving right after like the day back from maternity leave. And then, I'm trying to get home with my breast milk and the dude just like pouring it out.
That's liquid gold.
Yeah.
It is. It was so awful. Like, man, the rage. I was so mad. I was like, and by then you couldn't travel with liquids, right? So me having a temper tantrum at that moment was not going to play well. Eat you up for my breast milk. But thank you for sharing that story. That was amazing. Nikki, it is your turn. Share a story.
It's me. First of all, thank you all so far for sharing your stories. I can relate to each and every one of them. What has stuck out to me so far is, Tara, the way you talked about what is at stake, right? When people are looking up to you as an example and you let that get in your head, right? And I say let that. I need to have some grace for myself. Thanks, Shadi. But that starts to get under your skin. That alone, just that level, that extra layer of anxiety or that extra layer of worry has no doubt affected my performance, my focus a lot in the workplace. But that, there are tools and things like that to navigate. I want to take it back and tell a story of like before I began in my career and what pushed me to say, all right, I gotta do something. I have to set that example because the way I found out that I wasn't setting it was pretty like clear and jarring. So I let you all know that I had been a teen mom and was with my high school boyfriend. We had been together since we were 15. We got married right out of high school because I thought that's what you're supposed to do. And the high school sweetheart turned out not to be so sweet. And it was a really difficult relationship. Things like I would say, hey, I think I want to go back to school. And he would say, I don't know who's going to watch your kids. Now, these were our child, right? I was pregnant and we had a little one. And so things like that. And I know that, he took the step of actually saying that out loud. But the truth is, that's what a lot of people think about women in the workplace. A lot of people think that, and sometimes we think that ourselves. You could be in a marriage or in a solid relationship, and then this consideration of who's going to take care of those things while you're away, I think happens in a nuanced and very different way than happens to our partners, our male counterparts. And so that was already sort of looming. And I was literally barefoot and pregnant in Italy, because that's where he was in the Air Force. That's where his first duty station was. So I was like 20 years old and had my son who was 2, and I was pregnant with my daughter she's 17 now, but I was pregnant with my daughter. And my son was saying he wanted to go to the store. And I was like, oh, okay, mommy can drive you. And he said, well, mommies don't drive cars, only daddies drive cars. Mommies don't go to work, only daddies go to work. And I didn't know what I was doing to him until that moment. And the child that I was carrying, as I mentioned, was a female child that was my daughter. And I remember sitting there in the hospital after giving birth to her knowing that this relationship was, not gonna work out, not knowing what that was going to mean for me, because since I had been prevented basically from working or going to school during that relationship, I had nothing but a high school education. And that time that I worked at Wendy's for 6 months in sophomore year, that's all I had. And so that played a huge part in how long I stayed in the relationship, and all the things that my son had seen and was articulating to me that he was internalizing. And so it wasn't until that moment and me thinking about, it's one thing, and it's bad enough that my son is thinking these things, but at least, right, in a strange way, he understood that he would be able to pursue, to drive and go to work. But this little girl, not only was she going to think, mommies don't go to work, that might mean to her, well, then maybe I don't get to do what I want to do. So that's, that's the thing that prompted me to get out of that relationship and, and move forward. And I think it's really, I wanted to share that with you guys. I don't talk about that really at all publicly, but I know that it can't just be me, right? Many women have had to navigate relationships breaking up while trying to go to work, and having to make that consideration of where that puts the children. And I know that our male counterparts have these experiences as well. But what I'm wanting to call our attention to is the difference in how the world would engage with us based on those choices. Right? Yeah. And that was what was really, really tough. To be honest, it was really difficult. I ended up having to move back to the town where I went to high school, where the senior superlative prediction for me was not, Nikki will be most likely to be successful or most talented or anything like that. It was, she'll still be with this guy who was my high school sweetheart. She'll still be with him, and they'll have 3 more kids, but he still won't have married her. They were pretty mean to me in high school. And it's like in front of the whole senior class that was said to me. So after this relationship, because like I said, no working, no going to school during that time, and I was in a foreign country because he was in the Air Force, I had to move back to the town, the small town in Georgia, where that was the climate toward me, back in with my ex-mother-in-law, with no job, no car, no nothing, and just sort of figure that shit out. And so I just wanted to give a huge shout out to the women out here figuring that shit out every day, because there really isn't a lot of support. And because people without knowing your story will demonize the fact that you're a single mom just trying to, figure this shit out, just trying to, survive. And, I just feel like in this October Women's Sales Month, right, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about what needs to change in the culture and in how we treat mothers who work, in order for the next time we have this. I mean, there will always be war stories. Parenting will always be hard. But the next time one of these talks happens, the next generation of women having these kinds of conversations, I hope that they don't have the same kinds of stories as I do. I hope that they don't have stories about a lack of access to opportunity, about living underneath all of these expectations that we as women today live underneath. I mean, obviously it's fun too, right? I love being a mom. It's one of the most central parts of my identity. But I just wanted to take my time here on this forum to share that story. And I hope that it connects with someone. And if it does, and we're not connected yet, and you want to talk to me all about crappy ex-husbands and trying to survive out here, like I'm up for that too. So, thanks for listening to me.
No, thank you for sharing that story. And I connected with it so much, like the perceptions, right? The idea that, this is only as much as you can do, and you can't do any more than what the little box that they put you in, right?
Right.
And so they've stuck you in this box, and that's all they'll let you do. Now, from a leadership level, from a CEO level, from within organizations, those boxes, is like, it's where we need to break free from.
Mm-hmm.
And your story is basically how you broke free from the box. And that's amazing. And thank you so much for sharing it. I don't know if any of the other ladies have some thoughts, but I think that's amazing.
I have an image. Ironically, I just bought this today, and I really think I should pass it over to you, Nikki. Here.
Aw.
Hey,
Oh, that's awesome.
I love it.
Like, I'm like, why is this in my possession? Can I put it on the screen?
Because you know
Somehow,
what? It's
can
in
I
your possession
teleport
because
it?
your story matters
Because
too,
you-
Michelle. Because you out here figuring shit out too, Michelle. That's
I
why
know,
it's in your possession. We all are.
Good. Well,
I have a
yeah. I'm a little New York
Yeah, we
accent,
all are.
Thank you for sharing.
We're
your
all
story,
out here
Nikki.
trying to figure it out, and we all have our own unique stories and our own journeys, and they're not the same. And everyone's struggle is different,
Yeah.
and their experiences are different. And it's like, how many places do you have where you can share these stories that are all uniquely different, where people start to understand that women don't all have the same stories and they don't all fit into the same boxes, and they don't, that there were more than just, that one person there for the number of how many women you need, right? That it's more than just that we're, we bring our own experiences and value and, what we've learned throughout our careers to this opportunity. And you need to look at the whole person, not,
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
the
we're more than a female body in a seat. We're more than a checked box in your diversity initiative. Like, we're more than all of that. And I think everybody knows that. I think the world is just waiting for us to really step into that purpose and just start knocking shit over. Where's my book though?
I have a question for everyone, and I'm curious to know thoughts on this. So I lived in Silicon Valley prior to moving to Idaho, and culturally, they're very different in, I guess you'd say, family values, at least my perception. And I'm just wondering if you all have either moved or experienced kind of like different like perceptions or treatment of moms, like if you feel that perhaps they're regional. Like, I feel like in Silicon Valley, people wait a long time to have kids. And so they're busy, they're building their career. So if you step back and you take the time to say, wait a minute, like, my kids are important to me. I can't come to happy hour every week and I can't do this because I have a family, then that's like, ooh, you're not fitting with our culture. Whereas in Idaho, like, people are really young having kids. Like, these are young, like mid-20s, late 20s families. And so it's normal to say, actually, my wife really wants me to go home, or my husband, needs me to go get the kids because he's working too, or, whatever it is, it's more acceptable. Have you guys noticed anything like that? Or do you feel like there's different perceptions in different places?
I think for me, I noticed that, there was a certain period. I'm originally from New York. So there was a certain period of time where all of my friends sort of got married and I had a career. And so I was sort of considered outside the norm, that stereotypical of, oh, if she hasn't gotten married by now, she's never getting married. To add insult to injury, I've been engaged 3 times. But, like, that was just part of my story. So there was that, have you really, like, are you going to get married? And so for a number of years, it was like, are you going to take the time to get married or to meet the right person? Because I was always working on my career. Yeah. And so I think that's different in different parts of the country. I think it's, you ladies tell me what you think.
Every life is different, to Nikki's point that, like, we all have such different paths, and I mean, for example, I was married in my 20s, but I didn't have kids. And then I had kids when I married in my 30s. And so, I feel like every path is different. I think it's super important to just be respectful to everyone's situation and not have expectations of, like, oh, why can't they be like climbing the ladder or doing this, or why can't they be going to happy hour, or why it's just like everyone has different priorities, and really, like if you're in a workplace, like as long as like they're putting their effort in, they're doing their job, like there shouldn't be these other types of judgments and expectations and other things, and there should be just that respect. So
No, I 100% agree. Jonathan says New York City seems to be a wait till later region for kids. We've got some other comments here. Oh, she's thanking us for sharing the stories. She's juggling plenty of things on the job hunt. That's Annie. And she's an auntie mama, though. Okay. And we've got, let's see, Catherine says, X to the boxes. So we've got Christine up next to share a story.
Okay, so I hate going after Nikki. God, she's so dang good and always like so inspirational and just.
I think we lost.
Mine is like, all right, I'm gonna tell you, this is like the real, and I don't know how long this is gonna stay on your little profile, Jen, but I'm gonna keep it totally real. So I just remember this very specific day. I live in Arizona. It was a day where I was. It was the beginning of May. I know this specifically because it was for a Mother's Day tea. So I'm not one that loves all the PTA stuff. I'm going to be really honest about that. Like I like to do certain things, but I don't like to do everything. Like I'm not the one that goes in the room. That's just not for me. I'm like, how much can I donate? What can I do? How can I help that way? Like this is me just being real. Like it's just not for me.
I will let you check.
And I live. Like, I'm a very loving. Right. Okay. So that's me. So I remember this really specifically because it was a Mother's Day tea. And I had just gotten done in the morning doing like budget, all this stuff. I mean, we're like mid-quarter, blah, blah, blah. It was really hectic. I remember this because I was wearing a blazer. Like I was dressed because we were doing this work with a lot of other senior leaders in the organization. I am late to this tea. I know I'm late. So I, fly into the library. That's where the tea is happening. And I realized like I'm pretty much the last one there. And as I walk in, what I realized is there's like placemats on the table and they're laminated. And it's things about my mom. And, it has the little thing, my mom has brown eyes. My mom has all these things. So what happened, I found out later is, everybody walked around and had to find their kids, things. So we're all, apparently everyone's reading all of the placemats. So I get in and I, so my kid, he's like, hey, I'm over here, I'm late. They're already had started. So I like sit down and I see a couple of the other moms like giving me this look. And I'm like, oh, they're judging me. I feel terrible. I'm like, sorry, I'm late. I'm kind of giving the look. And then I noticed like, it's not a look of judgment. It's like a smirk. It's like they're trying not to laugh. So I haven't really looked at this placemat yet. So I looked down, I'm like, oh, how sweet. It's like my mom has brown eyes. My mom, her name is Christine, all these names. And then I get to the bottom and it says, things my mom does that's funny. And he had drawn a picture of the red devil. And and he wrote Red Devil. And that's like what my kids call me when I get like, oh my God, like they're like, she's the red devil. Like, and they'll like, when they were little, they would look at each other and do that. And then it also said really big, and if my mom toots. As big as can be, right there on the, and I'm like, so I like finally read it and I like look up. I am like, and then, I just was like, looked at the other moms and a couple of them were like, that was the best one. We were all waiting for you to here. And when you walked in with those pumps and that blazer on, girl, and I just was like, like, oh, and I guess I just have to think to myself, kids are the ultimate at like keeping us humble. here I am walking in thinking like, I got all this stuff to do. I'm managing lots of money, managing lots of people, doing all these things that feels really important. And my kid puts on something that is laminated. So I don't know how many teachers saw that thing. Let's be honest. They probably were like, look what it, and whose kid is this? And what should we get like when she walks the door? And it's like the ultimate, like kids keep you freaking humble. And at the end of the day, anytime I start to get just a little bit like, like I'm important or different things like that, like I have learned, you just take it back, right, and you look right in that like 10-year-old face, and he puts on the thing when you're the red devil, and if my mom toots, are you kidding me right now? Like this. So I mean, it's just like one of those things where you can't make this shit up. Like this is, and then a couple of the moms, we were like laughing. I'm like, oh my God. And it was just like such a moment where you can just like look around the room and just be grateful that everybody else is just as crazy as you are, and we're all in it together. But yeah, that's mine. It's just like my kids can.
That's awesome. No, that's an awesome story. I mean, it's life, right? That stuff happens.
I still have that thing. I mean, like the things you save, I don't save a lot. I take lots of pictures. That's a life hack. Mm-hmm. I would like have things everywhere because I felt like I had to. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna take pictures of everything, throw everything out. And so I do have a box that I keep like a few things that were like, you have to keep that's in the box, because that was a moment for me.
All right. Well, I wasn't going to share a story, but I'm going to share the story because you shared that one. So I've got this at my desk, and it's the robot tooth fairy. And the reason why we have a robot tooth fairy is because my child lost her tooth, and the tooth fairy didn't come. Tooth fairy fell asleep.
Yeah, I've had that happen.
Tooth fairy waiting for payday.
Tooth fairy was.
It's a little known fact that tooth fairy can only come on the 1st and the 15th in this house.
She wakes the next morning.
Sometimes you got to put it to him like that, right there.
Tooth fairy has her period. She's not feeling well.
The tooth fairy has cramps. I love it, Michelle. All right, sorry, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, seriously. So the next morning, tooth fairy's really busy. Oh my goodness, the tooth fairy must have been too busy. Like she just didn't make it to this route. I don't know. The tooth fairy didn't make it. A week later, and of course, the tooth fairy made it the next night. A week later, she comes home with this project that she did at her gifted class, where they needed to create a robot of something. And apparently she goes to class and she's like, the tooth fairy needs help.
It's so good. So good.
And she brings home the robot tooth fairy.
It's brilliant, really. I mean,
it really is.
It really is.
That's why she's in the gifted class.
I love it.
happened.
Really smart kid, but man, when she showed me that tooth fairy all proud, I was like, oh man.
Jen, that's an app. This is your next revenue stream. If there is an app where I, as a parent, right, can start like a tooth fairy like savings account for my kid, but they know that this is just for teeth you lose, and I can just press a button and let the tooth fairy. That's the robot tooth fairy.
Robot tooth fairy.
Kids.
Yeah, but then your kids are like yanking out their teeth, So
if you saw the video from me with the vet, you'll notice my son has his 2 front teeth missing.
they're always like, come on, it's so loose. I'm like, it's been loose for 6 months. Come on, like they just want to. What is that?
I'm loving this story.
I'm always like,
you haven't heard yet.
I'm gonna rip it out.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
Oh my gosh, some comments. So, haha, Christine Rogers, kids are the ultimate truth tellers and comedians. True story.
Yeah.
I'm surprised Christine Rogers.
No, thank you for this discussion. And Nikki shared with us that, mom life. Laptop battery died. But she's back.
Yeah.
Mom.
With her big goat.
Figure it out.
Love it.
That's funny because Nikki, my husband, when he wants to win my love and affection, he buys me drumsticks because he knows that.
Yes.
So He'll be like, babe, look what I got. I'm like, okay, now we're good.
He's right here with the matching
But
giggles.
I'm like, that's a whole
Those
other
three
show.
words I want to hear. And you're like, add to cart. That's
Yes.
All righty, Rachel, you are up for a story. Kristen, thank you for sharing. That was amazing.
It was amazing. I feel better about myself now that I know Christine Rogers toots.
I knew you were going to say it because you said it and nobody heard that.
I'm super excited because like I thought there was like some sort of rainbow glitter situation, and so we all feel better. Christine needs to get a book for her kids. It's like everybody toots. Yeah, so a few things come to mind. I'm not going to tell my ridiculous stories because honestly, let's just say like if there's a bad mom's club, like I'm definitely in it. Like I forgot my kids at the bus stop. Like they definitely had cereal for dinner on multiple occasions. Clothing is now pretty much optional in my house post-COVID. So I don't have, what did Shadi say? Like, I have like multiple schedules. That be my husband's stuff booked up in mine, and
it doesn't always work well.
I like to go on a walk in the morning. And what's your morning routine? I'm like, my morning routine is like fucking get up and like try to make sure everyone's alive and hopefully got something to eat and get where they need to go. Hopefully the shoes are the same, mine included. Like that's about all I got in me. So
checking pulses, making
yeah,
sure.
exactly. Like everyone's fed and loved. And clean. Clean is important because I have all boys and they're disgusting. But yeah. So a couple of things I've learned along the way. So when you start, when you're a young mom, for the young moms out there, one of the challenges is that, and I think you were alluding to this, Jen. Like when you're trying to climb in your career, a lot of times, in order to take whatever that like next step is, it's going to involve like a lot of travel or like longer hours and like just like a higher level of commitment. It's very difficult when you have like small little ones. And so I remember, in my late 20s, I was already in a position where it was like, oh, we want you to go be this like West Coast regional director, or, all these things that would require me to travel and just do a lot. And not only did I have small kids, but I was a single mom. So there was like, I couldn't get on an airplane and go somewhere because like you're not supposed to leave them alone. I don't know if that's another tip I have. Like apparently like you can't just like in the room. Like that's bad. So someone has to be with them. And it's kind of a bummer when you're in that place, especially if you're a single mom, because it does affect the choices that you have to make about what your career is. And so one thing I always tell like female moms that I'm mentoring is that to remember that like our careers as women, they're not linear. We often don't go sales rep, sales manager, VP of sales, blah, 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 like straight up this line. And you can see that from the women on this crew here, right? Like everyone's like, I mean, Shadi was one of my clients at the beginning of COVID. And we would be in meetings with each other and like her kids would just be like crawling all over her. And I'd be like yelling at everyone in my house. And we were just like, we're literally in meetings, like talking about their SKO. And we're like, what the fuck, And I just remember like Shadi looking at me one day. She's like, I think I'm going to do my own thing. Cause like, I'm sitting here all day anyways now. So like, why? Like now's the time, if I'm going to have to work while my kids climb all over me, I might as well like be my own check. And so I think, it's like sometimes we kind of go, we pull back from our careers for certain reasons. Maybe, I had my oldest son he just needed more. Okay. I had this pastor once and he said, that person's MGR, more grace required. And, and that was my oldest son. He is more grace required. Okay. Like nothing worked on him. Nothing. None of the rules worked. None of the punish. Like you would like punish this child and he would just look at you and he'd be like, so I don't care. Like none of what you think would work. And I was a young mom. So everyone was telling me, how I just needed to do it. Right. Like, oh, he just needs more discipline, or you just need, but like nobody understood, like the more you discipline this kid, the more ornery he got. Like that was like the worst thing that you could do.
That's the worst thing for some kids is when you're harder on them.
You had to like give him choices and make him feel like it was his idea. Like you had to sell him constantly. And even then, he's still going to do what the heck he wants to do. Part of that is because he's on the spectrum, but he was hard. And so there were times when I had to pull back from my career to like, that's just what I had to do. I had to forego that promotion, right? But then when that lifted, when I had more support, or when the kids got a little older, then I was like, how can I get to where I should have been had I not had to pull back, right? And so where's the detour? And I think like for a lot of women, we got to figure out like, where's the detour? And sales is such a great catalyst for that, right? It's just an amazing equalizer, because you can be the kid who just graduated from Cal with a major in business, or you could be the single mom like me who was a leasing agent at an apartment complex. And like, I remember seeing a job like advertising for a sales manager for like an outside sales position. And I remember like the base salary was like $55,000. And I thought that was like the most money ever. And I was like so excited. I think I made like $14 an hour at the time. And I had 2 babies and dad was gone, right? Because he's kind of a piece of garbage. So he's not the best. Makes really cute kids though. He's not the best. But so I was just like, I thought that was the most money ever. And somehow I got the job. I don't know how. But that was it. That was like the start of my career. And I was like, wow, like I can really I can do anything. I can get as much as I want if I'm just like willing to like work my face off and like continue to learn. And so I love that about the sales profession. And so if you're in a position as a woman where this is your time, where you have to pull back a little bit, like, don't worry, it's going to be okay. But when you come back like full swing, you got to look for the detour, right? And how you find the detour is you figure out like what you are amazing at that most people stuck at, right? So like I started out my career actually as a sales manager. I'd never even been an outside sales rep, and I just somehow got this random job. And so I'd never even been an individual contributor. I'd never made a cold call. I'd never done any of that, but I was a sales manager at a startup, and it wasn't cool then. It's like a startup wasn't cool. It was just a shitty job with no resources.
It really.
Now it's like hip or something, and I'm like, still just job with no resources where you have to do 10 people's job. Like, quit making it sound glamorous. It's not that glamorous.
No. Oh, so good.
I was like, it cracks me up.
Literally dying right now.
Like everyone like makes it sound so fancy. Like, no, it's not fancy. Like I'm doing 5 people's jobs. I'm like,
You have to do so many things. I get it. No, it's not.
yeah. And so
It's
they were like, hey,
rewarding.
yeah. So they were like, hey, like, we figured we should probably train the salespeople. Like, do you think you could like write a curriculum? And I'm like, sure. Let me just pull that out of my ear, right? But somehow I ended up like writing this whole like sales training curriculum. And then I ended up like flying around the country to like train everybody. And I was like, and all the other sales managers, most sales managers, I don't know why they ever take the freaking job, because they literally hate teaching salespeople, which is like, that's actually the job. I don't know why people are confused. All right. Like, I don't know why that's confused. So I learned, I love Nikki Steins. I learned that was my detour. Like, that's when I was a magical unicorn at, right? Everyone else hated it. I was really good at it. And so I was able to, like, even though I had to pull back, I was able to come back right where I would have been, or farther than I would have been had I followed the normal linear career.
Yeah.
So that's my mom story, but that's also my advice.
You got it. That was so good.
So good. I love it. I am fired up right now. Toast. We
Toast.
That's the hot sauce.
time right now.
Yeah, here's the hot sauce. I'm sweating balls.
No. Yeah, I know.
So bad.
That was so good.
So good.
You know, it's 8:00 and we're supposed to wrap up, but I think we should keep on going because I really want to hear the other two stories. I'm sorry.
Yes, I'd like to hear the other.
So, and
Yes.
I don't want to wrap it up. I'm supposed to be in a class like right now.
There's
We're
nothing.
gonna go for section today, and that's okay. I did the coursework. We'll move on.
Rebel.
You're fine.
All right, who's next, Alexis or Michelle?
Alexis is next, and then Michelle.
Michelle's gonna wrap it off. I'm excited for you too.
I have like a quick, really funny story, and then I have like a what I learned story. So a really quick, funny story. So the company that I worked at prior to Aspireship, they had like ping pong, and everyone would shoot each other with Nerf guns when they were bored, and like all this crap. So we had bring your kids to work day. My kids come, and from that day on, they tell everybody that like my mom's job is so cool. She plays ping pong and she gets to eat all the snacks she wants. They have Nerf wars, and like that's her job. So I'm like, great, this is great. So then it was the holidays and they didn't have school. So I had to bring him in, my son, and he is like packing for this Nerf war that he was intending to have once he gets there. So he brought his motorized machine gun, Nerf gun. First round of bullets go out, and one of them literally hits a coworker in the eyeball. Party is over. Like, it's one of those things where you're just like, oh my God, please, like, do you have to go to the hospital? Did he shoot your eye out literally? And he's like, no, I'm not joking. Like, he really hit me in the eye. So that's my kid story of don't bring your kids to work.
Sorry.
It's like that saying, you know, it's all fun and games until someone shoots their eye out. Like, no, really, that happened. But anyway, the kind of like what I've learned and kind of grown into story is actually my boss at that job. He has two smaller children. So he has a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And when I started with that company, my role was drastically different than what it developed into, and also my kids' schooling. So here in Idaho, it's really great. You know, live near your school and kids can ride their bikes to school. And so I really wasn't shuttling anyone. I was going to work. Like, I was just like, okay, kids, love you. Bye. Here's your lunch. See you when you get home. And my role changed drastically to where all of a sudden I had a team and I had people to manage, and I needed to be there for them physically to make sure that everything was okay. And during that time, additionally, my kids switched schools to a charter school, and no longer like they couldn't ride their bikes there. I was going to have to be transportation. And so that's difficult at 3:00 in the afternoon when you are at work and trying to manage people and all this stuff. And I remember I was on a business trip. We were at a conference in Anaheim. It was like the largest travel conference of the year. And we were all sharing a house, and we had gotten back from like events, and my boss and I were sitting at the dining room table, and I said, I really need to talk to you about something. Like, things are changing. My kids are switching schools. And would it be okay with you if instead of staying until 5, that I came in at normal time, left at 2:30 and took my lunch so I could pick my kids up and then work from home the rest of the day? And immediately he said yes. And I was so scared to have that conversation because of the perception. What if he says no? What am I going to do? And all these things. And I think that as I grow as a woman, I become more confident in being able to express what I need. You know, 10 years ago, I don't think I could have had that conversation. I would have been trying to figure out who could pick the kid up and what was I going to do? And, you know, how was I going to make this work? Because again, you know, we've talked about this in this conversation. It's like, as a woman and as a mother, you take that all on, regardless of having a partner or what it is. It's like, I got to worry about my kids. I got to figure out who's going to take care of them. And, you know, it's all on me. And so just being able to have that confidence in like my ability, my communication, all that stuff. It's so important to remember that like we are valued, even as mothers. Like, our contribution to the workforce is important, and people are willing to accommodate our needs because we are that good. And I'm not saying I'm that good, like I'm great, but like apparently what I brought to the table was enough for them to accommodate that. So remember what you bring to the table as a woman, as a mother, as a salesperson. Like, we bring so much. So that's my story.
There's definitely, there's definitely so much value in that unique perception that you bring with your experience, right? Amazing story. but just like that different.
Yeah,
Good
you
job,
are.
Nikki. Good job, Nikki, girl. Got it.
Yeah. Did anyone else have any other comments to share? Nick? No. Oh, we've got someone who says, let's see. Oh, I'm so happy I caught this. Me too.
P3.
Yeah, Alexis, I just
It's really difficult to do. Women, we are taught that we have to choose between work and family.
Mhm.
That is a true story. I shared a story on LinkedIn myself about like sort of my journey to motherhood. And I had 3 miscarriages while I was traveling for
Oh my-
work. Like my husband and I decided we were ready to have a family, and we kept on trying to have babies, and I kept on getting pregnant, which yay, but I kept on having miscarriages, and it was only until that third like business trip that I really realized that I had them right after I got back, like literally just off the plane. And that I needed to stop traveling because I go to my doctor and I say, do I need to stop traveling? Because this seems to happen right after I get off a plane. And is like, oh yeah, you might need to stop traveling. So going in to have that conversation that I needed to stop traveling as, the top contributor, number one salesperson, like that made the bulk of the revenue was difficult. And I was scared because I loved my job. Like I loved my job. So it's like those difficult conversations and knowing that you can have them. And honestly, I didn't have the confidence in myself that even though I was a top salesperson, I always felt like I was never enough. It was much later in life that I realized I'm enough just how I am. But when I was younger, and this is only talking about a decade ago, that I had that feeling of never enough, no matter how much I achieved, I always thought I should be doing more and getting past that feeling. So thank you so much for sharing your story.
Yeah. Tara,
Did
were you gonna say something? I was just saying, I totally agree. And I think, I wish I could say that I struggled with that a decade ago and now I've got it figured out. But I'm like, I just turned 40 and I'm still like, okay, yeah, let me try to balance that. Let me try to ask for difficult things and let me try to say it's okay to not do it all. And it's okay to choose, sometimes and say, you know what, I'm going to put a line in the sand and I'm going to stick to it. Because I think, you have that conversation once and then things start bumping up against that boundary. And all of a sudden you got to keep re-choosing. You got to keep being like, no, I'm putting a boundary here. I'm not traveling. No, it's like, okay, that's good for a month. Now what happens month, 2 months? So I think it's just a continued, consistent, I am valued, I am enough, and I am going to put my line in the sand. And you have to choose that line. Like nobody has to, even if it's like, hey, a person, like I actually want to travel now. I'm at the season now where I want to say okay to this, and we're going to have to make it work because we've got 15 sports and all of that. So it's even on the other side of things of like, maybe I don't want to pull back. Maybe I actually want to go more. And what does that look like? But I do think that you hit the nail of like confidence, just being confident that you are valued, that you are enough. And hopefully we have leaders and people around us who constantly speak into that. So I think that goes back to community. And that's why this is so important, because when I'm in my little vacuum, I'm not enough. Like I still have that brain garbage. But, when I hear moms, when I hear other people like you be like, hell yeah, we are enough. Like I need it. Thank you.
You're totally enough.
Yeah, we all are.
And we have to find places to work too, where it's less scary to have that conversation, right? Because we're not just scared to have that conversation because we don't believe in ourselves. We are scared to have that conversation because a lot of male bosses that we have are still assholes. And they still want us to pretend like we leave work and like we're like the Tooth Fairy robot. Right? Like we leave work and we press a button and then we just cease to exist until we come back at 8 a.m, right? And so if you don't work somewhere and work with a boss who truly appreciates, and a lot of companies say, and a lot of bosses say like, oh, family first, but when the rubber hits the road and you start to set boundaries and, commit to, doing your job, doing the best of your job, but also not at the sacrifice of your own family or your own mental health. And they won't support you in that, it's time to go work somewhere else.
No.
Also, we have two photo bombers. We have this adorable kid and the giant man hanging out with Nikki.
That's my husband, Ragnar Lothbrok. No,
that's we have like Thor or something, like with the giant beard.
This is my 9-year-old.
Aww.
Cutie.
Stinky football. You guys, this is life, you know?
look how
No,
cute.
that's it. Exactly. People are gonna come and be part of the picture, and that's amazing.
This is
That's what
life.
life's all about. I mean, are we being humans? We're always, it's funny, you know, in sales, we're always talking about doing discovery, right? And discovery for a prospect is all about all of the things about them, all their unique challenges and all the things that are uniquely them and how they're going to move forward in their life and their career based on the results that you're going to be able to provide them. How are we not doing discovery on the people we work with to understand what inspires them, what motivates them, what's important to them, and all the important things?
Yeah.
Why is discovery
So
only
true.
important for prospects? Isn't it for everybody?
Yeah.
I don't know. Just a thought.
One would hope.
So,
I agree with you. You can't build a culture, a well-functioning culture with any organization if you're not doing that with your colleagues. I mean, I think that if I had done anything like this, like what we're doing right now,
Yes.
in the past on a consistent basis, things would have been a lot different. But I don't know. It's not like because of technology, we're somehow figuring it out and connecting now. Like this can be done in a room face to face. You know, it works just as well. It's the effort. It's a trickle down effect. So, but anyway, who's lamenting over the past? Not me. But so I will not go on and on and on about this because I've learned how to taper it, and it's we're getting there. But my entire sales career, which spans over like 20 years, I'm not going to say it was like a big lie. It wasn't a big lie. It was like a culmination of like just compartmentalizing every little thing about my life. I never felt whole. I always, and I say this a certain way because it rings so true now. Like I would wear a mask from 9 to 5 of the person. Like I was the poster child for imposter syndrome. So I would wear my work mask from 9 to 5. And then from 5 to 9 a.m., I'd wear the home mask, the personal mask. You know, that was really me. And so I acted a certain way on the job. I felt like I had to be uber professional and clinical, and I had to really be able to discuss my products and all the information that I learned and medically versed in all the clinical trials. And, you know, that was very important for me to nail that because I was personable anyway and friendly and I got along with people. So for me, it was like, you know, you have to be able to build your credibility and your integrity, and you have to know your information and be able to verbalize it and be professional and blah, blah, blah. So when I finally got that down, I still wasn't respected as a whole human being because there were so many people in the industry, and I'm not saying that they worked with me, but they were just in the industry, women that used their appearance, their sexuality, whatever it was, you know, to get business and to do things that weren't ethical. So when you have women come along that really want to make a change in the world, they want to do well, they want to succeed, they want to move up the corporate ladder, so to speak, because they want to harness their, you know, intellect and they want to have these conversations, you're hitting up against the wall all the time. But that was one piece of it. You know, then that kind of bled into how I felt about myself. And it really affected my own self-confidence that maybe I really wasn't that intelligent, or maybe I really wasn't capable of having these conversations. Maybe they only looked at me as a glorified UPS, you know, truck driver delivering samples, you know, like it's that negative self-talk that I kind of like fed into my mind all the time. And no matter how well I did and how I moved up the ladder or, you know, finishing in the top 10% or winning awards or whatever, I never believed it because I thought that there was a loophole somewhere and, you know, it's just not real. It's not right. So I'm playing all these different parts. And still insecure, but still succeeding. On paper, everything looks good. Now, I don't know if you ladies have ever experienced this, but I'm sure many of you have, where like on paper, everything looks amazing. But behind the scenes, you don't feel like you measure up to what that paper says. So my resume could say, I went to this university and I finished with this GPA and I've won these awards and I'm making this amount of money and blah, 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 blah. But deep down inside, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling like I'm getting to where I want to go because it's not authentic to me. So over the course of like 20 years, my career was going in one direction and there was a lot of roadblocks along the way. But deep down inside, I never felt like I was showing up every day as authentic as I possibly could. And my big aha moment was I always wanted to go into training and into coaching. And amazingly, there was always red tape. Oh, you have to do this first. You have to do a year, in-house. You have to be a sales manager first to then get promoted to go and be in a training position. There was always like reasons why. The bottom line is, in retrospect, male dominated most of the time, bro culture, and I'm more valuable in the field generating money for you than putting me in a department with a salaried position, training people and not generating the revenue that you need to respond to all your shareholders. So it took a lot for me to swallow that, and now I understand it. As I got older, though, and I finally broke into the field that I want to be in, and having children, I think all of us can agree that our moms, that was the defining moment. You can fail epically. You can, I mean, the most random thing. No matter what you do, no matter who you show up as, no matter how ugly you look, no matter what kind of whatever, your children look at you like you are a goddess. Like there is nothing that you can't do. You can run the world if you want to. And on some of my worst days when I felt so small and I just couldn't go on and I was like, why? I don't know my why. I don't know my purpose. When your children are like drawing you pictures and they look up at you and they call you beautiful and they tell you how much that they love you and they appreciate you and the impact that you have on their lives. And then when parents call you up and tell you what incredible children you're raising, that they're becoming fine young men, fine young women with values, with principles, with a beautiful heart, that is worth everything. So I just turned 45 and I'm proud to say it. I don't even care. I just turned 45 in July. My life is like first beginning now. And people say, if I would have known back then what I know now, no, like I had to hit rock bottom for so many reasons. I always say, like, if rock bottom had a basement, I found it. If I had to go through all of that shit to be able to come out on the other side and to look back and say, now I see why it all happened that way. Now I can connect the dots. This is why it happened this way. This was the ripple effect. And I'm stronger for it. And I'm a better mother. And I'm a better career professional. And I'm a better friend, better daughter, better coach, better whatever. Then that's my lesson. So all I can say is, just to finish off, and then I promise I'll stop. School gives you the lesson before the test. Life gives you the test before the lesson. Mm-hmm. And I have no regrets for that.
Yeah, that is so true. That is so true.
What a way! Like, what a way to wrap it up, Michelle. I was rooting for you, and you did not disappoint.
She brought it home.
Bringing it home. Can we do this like all the time? I feel so.
I want to do this every week. Now I have like.
We should call it like sales mom therapy.
I talk to women like weekly, like lunchtime on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like the mom twist on it though. I like a monthly sales mom. Not that I'm committing to it, just throwing it out there.
Well, and we do have another one on the 30th, but it's not specifically for moms. But we could totally add. I have LinkedIn Live. We can add a mom's.
I got LinkedIn Live.
Yeah, I got a
fancy with your LinkedIn Live.
I don't know how they looked at everyone who had applied and they go, Jen Ferguson, she needs LinkedIn Live and we approve her. Like, there are people who've been waiting 4 or 5 months. I don't know. Like, it makes me wonder, what did I do so special? And maybe that's imposter syndrome right there. Like,
Yeah, I mean, you say
Right.
some pretty amazing things. I don't wonder why someone would give you a platform to share more ideas. You say cool shit.
Oh, you think
Yeah.
that's so nice.
I love it here.
I love
Okay.
it here.
Here tonight.
We will totally do this again. We got to look at some of these comments, though.
Yeah.
So, boom, Michelle.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
Mic
Yeah.
drop. Totally.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that was such a perfect sort of ending story.
It was.
I love how people talk about like imposter syndrome, and I love how people talk about it, and they're always kind of like, I don't know if anyone else has experienced it, and like literally everyone is always like, yeah, fucking every day, like literally every day of my life, like everybody,
But not everybody admits it, and
but not everybody admits it.
When you realize, when you found your tribe, when we can all on a public platform like this be like, oh no shit, yeah, like I'm so fake. I was showing up every day being somebody I'm not. Like, yeah. And the more vulnerable we are, and the more we tell our story, and the more we share, and we're real, that's how we attract more people, because we're relatable. Like, I can't show up anymore. Like, oh hi, like I can't do it. This is who I am. You like it, good. You don't, that's good too.
Well, and when you do that, you invite other people to do the same, right? You create when you're brave enough to be your whole self and to say hard things, you invite others to do the same. And that is one of the greatest gifts that you can give, I think, especially to the women around you. And like, I was trying to be really intentional about that in my female relationships, because I want to give women around me, like, the permission to like just let her freak flag fly, mostly because I'm a total whack job and it makes me feel better, like if everyone else is crazy too. But people really appreciate that.
And it's true. It's part of being like your human self, right? I mean, that rock bottom story, I felt that rock bottom. And as moms, sometimes we feel that rock bottom, right? We have moments where it's like, oh my gosh, I've let down my kids, and I've let down my company, and I've let down myself, and I've let it all get to me, and I'm just, it's awful.
I think that what we've demonstrated here with everybody, like what was really like powerful for me on this call is when I'm looking at this screen and we're all nodding our heads at the same time. And sometimes it was because there was a funny story about like kid poop, and I think we all have a kid poop story. But beyond that, it was because of these really like hard things that just looking around, it looks like we've all dealt with in some way, shape, or form. And it's making me think about why representation is so important.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us are talking about how we sort of suffered in isolation, or how we went through these things, perhaps not knowing that there was likely an ally, another woman, another mom who was thinking and experiencing and feeling these same things. But if there was only like 2 of us on the sales floor, right? Then it's kind of tough to even know if it's okay to talk to this other mom. Does she not want to like wear the mom label around the office? So will she not want to be my friend for that reason? There's all these other like kind of concerns that go into it. But when we think about the fact that women, as compared to our male counterparts, have on average in this industry a 70% quota attainment rate, right? Versus 67% on men, we're 3%. And I think a lot of people don't really tap into what that 3% actually looks like. And they kind of like, it's tomato, right? Like it's nominal. But when we drill down and quantify it, what we're talking about is, depending on the company, 200 more accounts, right? 200 more closed pieces of business, right? Annually. So talk about walking into your purpose. We have to start really feeling ourselves, because Alexis, you're right. We are that good. We're 200 more customers a year good. And whatever that 3% amounts to the bottom line of whatever the company is. So what we need to not do is doubt ourselves. What we need to not do is, be skeptical of each other when we encounter each other. There are reasons for that. I got stories too, like I get it. But if y'all are seeing what I'm seeing, right? With all of us in unison nodding our heads and with all of us sharing these stories, like there's so much empowerment in this. And this is the key. This is how we get there. Community is how we get there. Thank you for putting this together, Jen.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, no problem. I think it's a storytelling, right? So you don't, like, people see stats and they understand that it's different, but until you actually tell a story, they don't get the impact and how it matters. You know what I mean? Like, just how it matters to you as a person, but how it could have impacted even your sales. So we have 3% more, right? And we have 3% more quota attainment. What would that look like if we were in inclusive cultures? Would it be 10% more? Would it be, is the more because we're not treated the same and so we're always striving for more? Or is it because that's only the bottom limit of what women can do in sales, and we're capable of so much more if you just give us the opportunity?
But women are afraid to show their quote unquote weaknesses or the things that they're struggling with, or any of the things that we spoke about tonight. Many women are afraid to even broach the subject for fear of being viewed as weak or not as capable in their professional lives, or whatever,
being a troublemaker,
right? That it would impact their ability to close. So we not only have to appear to be unbelievable closers and bring in business, but we have to have our shit together too, in every aspect of life. So if you're juggling 10 balls and you let one fall, you're still not juggling 9 that you should be appreciative of. You just drop one and like everything is going to go to shit. So, now what are you going to do? And that's something that I struggle with from time to time. I'm much better now, but I think so many women struggle with that it's like all or nothing. And it's not. There's a gray area, and we're allowed to be somewhere in that gray area and still make it happen and like get shit done. We can do that. So
yes. With that,
I totally agree. Yeah.
Let's all take care of our kids now.
Yeah. Like put some ears under some noses and make sure folks are still alive.
Smelling salts.
What I'm off to do.
I gotta clean the barf out of my kitchen and write a contract.
I know it's really long, but I really appreciate it. I hope you got some value out of it, and we'll have to do this again sometime.
Let's do it again. Bye,
Let's do it again.
Bye, ladies.
Bye.
Bye. LinkedIn Live.